President Donald Trump says transgender people cannot serve in any capacity in the military. In a series of tweets, Mr. Trump said he had reached the decision after consulting senior military figures and experts. Barack Obama's administration decided last year to allow transgender people to serve openly in the military. It's been estimated that there are more than 2,500 transgender active duty service personnel out of 1.2 million. Well, a short while ago, our correspondent Barbara Plett-Usher in Washington spoke about the implications of the tweets.
You know, it's very difficult to analyze how big a deal this is because it's come out of the blue. It's a couple of tweets this morning making very categorical statements saying that transgender recruits or officers or soldiers are not allowed to serve in any capacity because the Army should not be burdened with the medical costs or the disruption and so on. So we've had the Pentagon refer all questions to the White House. It seems that the Pentagon was not prepared to say this or to respond to it. It looks as if it was taken by surprise. What we do know is that the policy to accept transgender recruits is under review. Now, that decision was made a year ago by the former administration that transgender recruits would be allowed to apply and to serve openly from July 1st this year. When the new defense secretary came in under the new administration, he said in principle he had no problem with that, but if he was faced with questions or problems, he would consider them. Then just before July 1st, he said he had been faced with some questions, so they would extend a review for 6 months until January 1st, and the key points of it would be, will this affect the readiness and the lethality of the military services? But he said in no way does this mean the outcome is presupposed, and it does not affect current policy and procedures, which is openly people who are already in the Army and the military who are transgender are serving openly. So this is quite different from that approach, which is what we know publicly stated by the Secretary of Defense a couple of weeks ago. It's very difficult, therefore, to say where it comes from and how significant it is.
Yeah. Gosh, how many times have we spoken about the President's tweets without really knowing where we're going with this? But if we're talking about 7,000, up to 7,000 transgender service members currently serving, if President Trump has his way, what happens to them? They get fired, do they?
Well, I guess. I don't know. I mean, presumably the Pentagon would have something to say. There are policies and procedures in place. I don't know if Mr. Trump can overturn them with a tweet. He's suggesting that he has been in consultation with the Pentagon, which would mean perhaps there had been some groundwork laid, but that's not what we've been told, and that's not what the procedures are in place. So it's very difficult to know. The policies that are under review is the recruitment of transgender candidates. So Mr. Trump, for example, raised some issue about medical costs. Yes, that is an issue, whether the Army has to provide transition services for people transitioning from one gender to another as part of healthcare costs. Now, that would presumably affect people already serving, because what the announcement said last year was those who apply as new recruits, they have to have been sort of stable or comfortable in their chosen gender for 18 months. So there are all kinds of complicated questions around this issue, which the 4 branches of the military had already been looking into and which they had been discussing with the Secretary of Defense. To what degree they've also been discussing that directly with Mr. Trump, and whether that changes policy completely because of one tweet, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Barbara Plett-Usher.